No One Lives Forever 2, A Spy in Harm's Way is the 2002 sequel to No One Lives Forever, The Operative. Developed by Monolith Productions, it manages to improve upon a lot of things from the first game, whilst also including a few new additions that set it apart from its prequel.
I'll report this to the director!
I report this to the director!
A year has passed since the events of Nulf 1, and Cate Archer is now a fully fledged super spy, working for Unity, once again fighting against the evil organisation H.A.R.M. As you would expect, things go wrong. She's ambushed before being able to complete her mission, and is left for dead after an attack by a ninja woman named J.A.C.K.
I'm sorry.
Never one to accept defeat, she sets off again to discover just what H.A.R.M is up to, travelling to such locations as Siberia, India, and Ohio in the US. The game still largely favours stealth, and the mechanics have been greatly improved since the first game. Cate can now safely lean around corners to see nearby enemies, which is an absolute godsend for players trying to ghost through levels. There's also a few areas where lights can be switched off to provide a temporary hiding place, allowing Cate to be fully hidden from enemy view, if you stand still long enough. Tracking the enemy positions and cameras is also made much easier, thanks to a nifty new gadget called the Utility Launcher. Furthermore, Cate can also pick up the bodies of fallen guards and hide them out of sight. All of these new additions make the stealth feel much more refined and ultimately more satisfying. A weird addition, however, is the advent of respawning guards. Basically what it boils down to is that even if you clear out an entire level of enemies, one of them is always going to constantly respawn. I mean, it's good in the way that it always keeps you on your toes, but that makes the concept of knocking out enemies and routinely hiding their bodies kind of repugnant, as there's always going to be an influx of new guards. Cate's arsenal has also been trimmed down in a good way. Fumbling through your gear to find the right gadget has been done away with, instead opting for simply holding down the right mouse button until the action is completed. Some people might say that this is a bad thing, that it's too simplified, but I think it just keeps the gameplay moving and doesn't bog you down. Collecting intelligence in the field has returned from the first game, only now it actually has a direct benefit on Cate's skills, allowing you to upgrade things like weapon proficiency, armour, and gadgets. Further completing main and optional objectives also earns points, which can improve things further. Now, whilst things like weapon proficiency and armour can have a profound effect on the later levels, some of the other skills are borderline useless to upgrade. It just means you have to be a bit more selective when putting points into things. Graphically, the game is leaps and bounds above Nulf 1's. Facial animations in particular are much more detailed, making the cutscenes adequately watchable. Cate looks more like a real person now as opposed to a storefront mannequin. The environments themselves are packed with detail and feel much like their real-world counterparts. A shining example of this is the levels set in India. More fantastical settings like underwater bases are a worthy and welcome addition. They've also managed to pack a few nifty effects into the updated lift tech engine. My favourite of these is the synthetic lava, used in H.A.R.M's new hollowed out volcano lair, which also suits as the backdrop for a finale fight with Volkov. Dr. Evil would be proud. Each location is also accompanied by a culturally suitable soundtrack, which in and of itself is something of a masterpiece. But it's weird in a way. I mean, the game has taken a lot of steps forward, but also feels like it's taken a few steps back. The equipment selection from the first game is completely removed. Selecting certain gear before a level was one of the most enjoyable aspects of the game, as was going back to earlier levels with newly acquired gadgets to access formerly inaccessible areas. This is completely non-existent in Nulf 2. Also, while there is a mission selection, reverting to old chapters completely removes all of your upgrades. It would have been nice if these upgrades carried over between playthroughs. Also, there is considerably less environments in Nulf 2 as there were in Nulf 1. I'd even go far as to say as much as half. The Siberian chapter, for instance, makes up a good quarter of the entire campaign and drags on a little too long. The areas themselves aren't that big, there's admittedly more detail in them, but the objectives are often quite vague and confusing, and often rely on you finding a single piece of intelligence that contains a code or unlocks the next objective, meaning if you're stuck, you'll likely be walking around the environment for a long time trying to figure out what you've missed. Unless you've upgraded Cate's search ability, which allows her to find items much faster, this can be an incredibly tedious process. This also coincides with how enemy weapons and ammo must now be manually taken from each corpse. As a result, the pacing of a level is constantly put on hold, as you're forced to stop and search every single enemy in the area to stock up again. Less of a legitimate complaint, more of a personal issue is Cate's new voice actor, Jen Taylor, most famously known as the voice of Katana in Halo and Zoe in Left 4 Dead. She doesn't do a bad job with it, it's just I found myself so accustomed to Kit Harris from Nulf 1 that it was a bit jarring.
Nope, guess I'm staying after all.
What? That's crazy. I didn't come all this way to let you drown.
Despite these few niggling annoyances, Monolith 2 really is as close to a perfect experience that you can expect in a first-person shooter. The same charm and character from the first game is back in spades.
Oui? Ah, okay, sounds like. Freddy's there. Bicycle. Pony!
Heat up the griddle and get your spatulas ready. We're making man cakes.
I just wish they had worked on the replayability a bit more, but overall you really have to look for things to complain about in this game, and believe me, that's a good thing.
Director, there's a call. There's an urgent telephone call for you.
I